Hello, Crowley ISD. My name is Nick Keith, and I'm the Executive Director of Curriculum and Instruction here in Crowley. And I wanted to take a few minutes and talk to you about our next steps in distance learning and our expectations moving forward. First, I'd like to start by saying how incredibly grateful I am for the outpouring of support, of outreach from our campuses and our teachers to our students over these last 2 weeks of our district closure. It's been an incredible example of Crowley Pride Unified. Now moving forward, we're going to look at the details and next steps for how we continue that unified approach to teaching our students even when they're not in the building with us. So first, let's talk about continuity of services. So if you're watching this on the CNI website, there's a link next to this video that says Continuity of Services Plan. I would encourage you to take a look at that document. It has the plans for everything that Crowley ISD has done to both respond to the COVID-19 closure, as well as some of the things that we're doing moving forward. Section 6 in that document is all about instructional continuity, and the details of what I'm presenting to you here are available in that section. So again, I encourage you to take a look at that continuity of services document. But let's start by talking about what we've done so far and where we're headed next. So for phase 1 of instruction, it began with our COVID-19 website, where we centralized digital resources for parents and students so they could continue to learn during our initial closure. We distributed print packets at our meal sites. The campuses reached out and made contact with parents and students, and as a district, we began planning for what we think may be a long-term closure. Now with phase 2, we have a few guiding principles for instruction. We want to standardize expectations, streamline communication, make sure we continue to provide instruction, and minimize stress for students and families. This video is all about the details of how we'll accomplish those 4 guiding principles. So let's talk about the plan, details, and expectations for phase 2 of continuing to provide instruction for our students. The areas we'll be addressing are our start date for phase 2, the platform we'll be using, how we'll be using district lessons, the role of teacher lessons, the guidelines for distance lesson creation, grading, and teacher and staff availability. Our start date for phase 2 will be Monday, March 30th. During this week, as part of your professional development, you've been creating a Google Classroom, so that's ready to roll out. And we'll also be rolling out district lessons, which we'll talk more about in this video on Monday. The platform that we'll be using as part of our efforts to streamline communication is Google Classroom. So we want to make sure that every teacher has a Google Classroom set up and ready to go, and because that's where we're going to be sending parents in order to find more information in classwork. So then let's talk about district lessons. So at the district level, in collaboration with lead teachers, instructional support specialists, and content coordinators, we will be creating weekly lessons for a majority of the core content areas. What that means is, at the elementary level, the teacher will just need to assign 1 document per week that has lessons for every core content area as well as enrichment lessons. At the secondary level, teachers will assign 1 document per week in their content area. If you take a look at this list, and this document is linked next to the video on the CNI website, you'll see which content areas will be assigning district-created distance learning lessons starting on Monday, March 30th. I encourage you to take a look at that document once this video is done. So district lessons will be broken down into priority and supplemental lessons. Priority lessons are what's expected for every student to complete. Supplemental lessons are what we're encouraging students to complete. So we want to make sure that students have enough work to get them through the week, but we also don't want to overwhelm families. So this is part of the minimize stress guiding principle for phase 2. So if you take a look at this elementary distance learning lesson template, you can see it has all 4 core content areas. You'll see a list of priority lessons for students, and then you'll see supplemental lessons. Below that, you'll also see a set of enrichment lessons that we'll be rolling out in the near future. Secondary looks very similar, except that their documents are broken down by content area. So there'll be one document for each content. This is a math example, and you'll see the 2 priority lessons and the 2 supplemental lessons. Each lesson has 3 parts. It has a focus, a read watch, and a practice and respond. The focus is just the objective for the lesson. The read watch is obviously something for students to read or watch. And then the practice respond section tells them how they're going to practice the skill that they've just learned. When these are assigned in Google Classroom, each student will get their own copy of this document, so they'll be able to type their responses directly into the document and turn it back into you, the teacher, for feedback. There are videos on all of these things I'm telling you about below this one on the CNI website. So then the role of teacher lessons, we want to make sure that you can still address the needs of your students. So teacher lessons can be designed and replace supplemental lessons each week. So we're still expecting that all students complete priority lessons, but then if you would like to have students replace a supplemental lesson with your own activity, you are more than welcome to do that. You would just post your lesson in Google Classroom as a separate assignment from the district created document. Now, both district and teacher lessons will follow distance learning lesson guidelines. I'll show you a screenshot of the document here, but then I would encourage you, it's linked next to this video, to go take a look at this on your own. I'd like to highlight 2 principles for designing online distance learning lessons. The first guideline we'll be holding to is that each online lesson should take no longer than 25 minutes to complete. That includes the teacher teach piece and student practice. The reason for this is that we're looking at families that may only have one device for multiple students, so we want to make sure that they have time to complete all of their classwork. So each online lesson taking no longer than 25 minutes to complete. And Principle 3 talks about asynchronous versus synchronous learning. Asynchronous learning means that things are posted in Google Classroom for students to complete on their own time. Synchronous learning means that students would have to be in a certain place at a certain time. For example, if you held a mandatory Zoom conference to teach students, that would be synchronous. So what we're doing is we are focusing on asynchronous learning, where we post things for students to do on their own time on a flexible schedule versus synchronous. Now that doesn't mean you can't host a Zoom video conference for your students so they get a chance to see each other or ask questions. What it does mean is we're not going to be using synchronous Zoom conferences to present new instruction for students. We want to make sure we're posting things students can do on their own time. So there have been lots of questions about grading, and that's something that's still to be determined. We'll have more information for you within the next week or so. We're still waiting on some additional guidance from the state about what that might look like in Crowley. Then finally, teacher availability during the closure. We know that everyone has a different situation at home right now. Some are taking care of small kids, some are taking care of aging parents, but we do want to set the expectation that teachers are available for 3 hours each day. And that 3 hours will be a combination of Zoom PLCs with your campus teams, and then also offering office hours through Zoom to support students who may need help with the week's lessons. There's a video on how to set up Zoom office hours in Google Classroom below this one on the CNI website. And these schedules will be set by your campus, and your principal will provide you with more information. So once again, I just want to thank you for being a rock and stability for our students during this time. As we continue to be Crowley Pride unified, remember that our focus for instruction as we move forward is to standardize expectations, streamline communication, provide instruction, and minimize stress for our families.